Ladies and gentlemen, last time we were together, we talked about Brute and how they fared within Everfest. Today, we're going to talk about Guardian. It seems like Guardian got all the fun tools, like they got all the stuff, all the best things in life, including like a really pretty diamond or gem or emerald. I guess it's technically an emerald. But did they get enough stuff to be like the best of the best? Let's talk about it. Is their stuff good? Are they winners or are they losers? We're going to talk about every card, give them all a star ranking in this video. If you want to catch how I thought about all the Brute cards, watch the video that's popped onto the screen right now. Otherwise, let's get to it. Grandeur of Valahai, which is a beautiful looking card, a card I will never open in a million years. If you opened it, you're incredibly lucky. You should like pat yourself on the back, go buy a lottery ticket. This card is the Fable in the set. It's a Guardian Resource gem. It's legendary. You can only have one Grandeur of Valahai in your deck, and it says when you pitch it, it creates a Seismic Surge token. You also get 3 resources, and it doesn't block at all. Is that good? Well, it's okay. It's pretty good. It's not bad. I would honestly look at this and consider putting it into the deck for maybe... Oh, I don't know. I'd maybe put it in Valda. I think Valda has more interest in running something that creates Seismic Surge tokens because her hero effect does involve using Seismic Surge tokens, but I'm not necessarily sure I would put this into a deck for Oldhim because he doesn't necessarily care about reducing the cost of his attacks. And he's more of a fatigue-focused hero thus far, and you could put it in Bravo, but you have more consistent ways of doing that already. It is sort of like a win more card in Bravo. It's weird because we've seen the other gems in other sets make their way into decks from time to time, like Kano almost always plays the Eye just because the opt and the pitching blue makes total sense. But at the same time, you don't see the same thing said about the Heart, which gains you a life, which is universal. And you don't see a lot of people running Arcanite Shard in Visage or any of the other Runeblade decks. And so this, to me, feels more like an Arcanite Shard than it does an Eye of Ophidia. And so I'm going to give it a 2-star out of 5. If you want to put it in the deck, you could, but you don't really need it. You don't really care that much outside of it just being a beautiful card and having some fun upside. It's a collector's piece. You can play with it if you want to. It functions, but I don't think you necessarily need it, and actively probably don't want to play it if you're playing like a fatigue strategy because it doesn't block. This guy is cool. This guy's pretty cool. Bravo Star of the Show is a brand new version of Bravo. In this version, he is an elemental guardian hero that has the power of all elements. He's like Captain Planet, which, now that I'm thinking about it, makes total sense for like his character and Arya. It's very planet focused, very like nature. Anyway, he has the essence of Earth, Ice, and Lightning. He can use all of those cards. It says at the start of your turn, you can reveal an Earth, an Ice, and a Lightning card from your hand. You have to show all 3. If you do reveal cards with those 3 keywords, or those 3 subtypes, but whatever you want to call it, then you get this effect. Your next attack action card that you play with cost 3 or greater gains +2, dominate, and go again. And that's pretty good. The effect is tricky to actually get to trigger. It's a little bit tricky to trigger, but it's not the worst thing in the world as far as difficulty goes. You can make it work. The fact, basically, and this is it, the fact that he can have access to the power cards of all 3 elements, in addition to generics that are powerful, in addition to guardian cards that are powerful, is a huge deal. But is it that huge of a deal? I would say he's a nice solid 3-star. He's a nice solid 3-star, and the reason is this. Sometimes he's a hero that doesn't have a hero effect, and his hero effect is just you have more cards to build within your deck. Sometimes when you line up the pieces, and there are people out there that are saying that you can make it very consistent. I have not done the hypergeometric calculation. It is something that I would sit down and be interested in looking at, but if you can make it consistent, or if you can land it from turn to turn, this effect is game winning. So in that respect, I think he's going to be one of those heroes that's really enjoyable to try and make work, really enjoyable when it works, and then when it doesn't work, he's still pretty good because he has access to powerful cards. So 3-star, nice average. I don't think he's going to immediately come into the meta and crush people, though his effect does look like you could possibly do that if people figure it out. So I'm curious to see if they do. I could be wrong on this one, but I do think a nice solid 3-star. Stalagmite Bastion of Eisenloft is a beautiful looking cold foil. Again, I don't have one of these. It is very fantastic looking. It's an Ice Guardian equipment, which is weird because Ice Guardian is not like a templating we've seen. It is an offhand shield. It blocks for 2, and it has the temper keyword, so it can block for 2, and then after that it can block for 1, and when you finish that block for 1, it shatters into a million pieces. It says, whenever you defend with Stalagmite, create a Frostbite token under the attacking hero's control. So is this good? It is good. The problem with this shield is not the fact that it's good, because it is good. The problem with the shield is that it's just outclassed by the other shield that can block infinitely. The moment I saw this effect, I was like, that is awesome. And then I thought, do I actually play this over the other shield? And then I realized, probably not. Which is sad, because I do like this shield, and I probably will still play it. Here's the thing. I think this is more playable in an aggro Guardian. In a Guardian that wants to push damage and wants to block minimally-ish, but when they block, they have tools to do so. They block with their equipment. They block with their Stalagmite Bastion of Eisenloft. So if you create an aggro Guardian that is just slamming down big attack after big attack, you don't want to give up cards to pay the resource constantly to block with the other shield. So this is a nice, solid option. And this leads me to what I think they're doing with Guardian in this set. They are just providing a bunch of aggro options to allow you to play more of an aggro archetype for the class. Because right now the class is really all about control, and if you're playing Bravo, you slam down a couple of big attacks more often than you would if you're playing Oldhim, I would say. For this card, I am going to give it a 3-star, and I'm going to give it a 3-star with the stipulation saying that I think it's better than that. I think it's more of a 4-star, but I'm knocking it down, and I almost knocked it to a 2-star just because it's outclassed by the other shield in general in effect and ability, but I do think that it will be played if aggro Guardian becomes a thing, which it could be, because some of these cards are aggro focused, we'll talk about in a second. Valda Brightaxe, very solid, middle of the road 3-star. This is the weird thing about this class, is it feels very solid. Like all the cards given, well, not all, most of the cards given to Guardian feel pretty solid. Now, whether or not they're outclassed by others or if they are just strictly better than other cards, that's where we'll find out if they rise in the star rankings or not. Valda here, the young Guardian hero with 21 health, 4 intellect, and whenever an opponent draws a card during an action phase, create a Seismic Surge token for each card drawn this way. She also says at the start of your turn, if you control 3 or more Seismic Surge tokens, then cards you own with Crush gain Dominate, which is a really good effect. And you can actually just generate 3 Seismic Surge tokens in this set with a card in this set, and so you can set yourself up nicely for that. Now, the other effect, the whenever someone draws on a card during an action phase, create a Seismic Surge token, that effect would have made this a 4-star had they not pushed down the ability to draw cards off of Plunder Run and things like that. Though Plunder Run technically is still available in Blitz, which is where you'll be playing Valda Brightaxe, and it was very, very popular until Briar kind of came down, the idea of drawing cards during an action phase. So it could still be a 4-star, but right now I'm putting her at a nice solid 3-star because there is this shy away right now in the, I guess, in the settling and the aftermath of the Briar errata and the Plunder Run Classic Constructed ban. There's this shying away of drawing cards to a certain degree, though I do think it could come back in force with a couple of random like Majestics or generics as well in this set. So she may shoot up to the 4-star here within the Blitz meta because she's got more health, she's strong, and she can make big things cheap and give them Dominate. But right now I'm putting her at the solid little 3-star ranking. This card, though, This card is good. I like this card. Earthlore Bounty, just like we saw, well, I should say this, just like we're going to see with other equipment that they've put in this set, Earthlore Bounty is now a secondary option for that power slot chest piece that was almost always taken up by Tectonic Plating. Tectonic Plating was like almost always the uber nuts pick. You'd just go with it because it makes you incremental value over time. Earthlore Bounty now kind of does the same thing, and so now you have two options. Do you want to play Earthlore Bounty that has the effect that says whenever you draw a card from an action card effect, you create a Seismic Surge, which is kind of cool. If you build your deck around that, that's pretty cool. Or do you play the Tectonic Plating, which guarantees you by paying the resource for it a Seismic Surge that way? There's two different options, and if you are new to the game, this one's probably easier to get your hands on, maybe a little bit cheaper, and so LSS has done a very smart thing here and provided you a secondary slot choice that you can make. This card with Temper has a block of 3, just like the Tectonic Plating has a block of 3. This one explodes, whereas Tech Plating doesn't. This one is in some ways outclassed by Tech Plating, and that's okay because of the rarity difference. Legendary versus Majestic. I would say this is a solid 4-star. I think this is almost one of those uber nuts cards that you just slam down on the table, but it is outclassed to a certain degree by the Legendary in the Guardian set. Still, 4-star. Very good. Pulverize. This is one of several cards that makes me go, they really want to push aggression as far as aggro Guardian is concerned. They want to push aggro Guardian as an archetype is what I'm trying to say. A 10-cost Majestic that attacks for 14, has a brand new keyword in Heave 3, which is at the beginning of your end phase, if this is in your hand and you have an empty arsenal, then you can pay 3, like pitch a blue from your hand, set this face up into your arsenal, and then create 3 Seismic Surge tokens. So in other words, you're taking that 3-cost blue card and you're floating those resources over to next turn, and you're putting Pulverize into the arsenal, telling your opponent, hey, I'm probably going to play this next turn unless you take cards from my hand. Also, this says whenever it hits a hero, their first attack during their next turn has -4. This is, by the way, a fantastic card for Valda because it creates you the 3 Seismic Surge tokens, which would give this dominate and probably make you just win the game. Really, really good card. I give this a 4-star. I think this is going to be played in aggro Guardian, and I do think aggro Guardian is something that is worth testing, worth trying out, and worth playing with. It's unfortunate that Guardian in general struggles a little bit with Prism and the way that Prism plays, but perhaps over time with tweaks and stepping away perhaps from the control style and pushing more of this giant, huge attack thing, maybe aggro Guardian can go toe-to-toe with like a Prism, but I do think there are other classes that could possibly push Prism down over time and allow aggro Guardian to become a thing, and if so, I think this card is part of it. Imposing Visage is a 3-ish cost or like Guardian action. It's an X3. It's a Majestic Guardian action that blocks for 3 that cost X3, and it says search your deck for an aura card with cost X or less, put it into the arena, and then shuffle, go again. So basically this goes and fetches you an aura from your deck of your choice at the cost of paying 3 times the going rate for that aura. I don't like this card. I do see the usage of it. I think you can pull a variety of different auras like Blessing of Deliverance. I don't think you're really pulling like your Emerging Avalanches, your Emboldens. I don't really think that you're pulling much. Technically, you could pull like a Seismic Stir, which is what a card we'll talk about in a little bit. The best thing I could possibly see you pulling is like Showtime. You could also jam down like Stamp Authority as well, I believe. And that would be a pretty good power play as well. But it's so expensive. It basically means that you're not blocking on the prior turn, like when your opponent's attacking you. You're playing down Imposing Visage, and then you're paying the 3 cards from your hand that are left and going and getting. It's just, this is such an expensive card that do I actually see this being used? Not particularly. There's so many little tiny corner cases that make you go, it's okay. And so for that reason, and because there are a lot of auras in Guardian, I'll give it a 2-star, but that is a generous, generous rating. Let me know what you think about this card specifically in a comment below. Am I way off on this? Is this card way better than I think? If it is, let me know down there and tell me why you think it's way better. But right now, I think it's a 2-star. Nerves of Steel, though, is very interesting because it's an aura that you could fetch up with that previous card. It costs 3. It blocks for 3 if you want that. And when it enters the arena, it removes a -1 counter from a chest equipment that you control. So if you're blocking with Tech Plating or the Earthlore Bounty, if you've already blocked with it, then you remove that. And then it also says Battle Worn and Temper on equipment you control doesn't trigger if it defends an attack with 2 or less. This plays so nicely against things like, well, I don't want to say Prism because, I mean, technically blocking with your equipment always feels bad against like the tiny little spectral shields, but this is really good if you think you're going to see a lot of Benji coming up, and if you are, then this card makes a ton of sense against like anti-Benji or really anti-Ninja in general, because it does allow you to kind of sidestep some of those Kodachis or small attacks that may lead to larger attacks. It also just has a really nice ability to block out long go wide turns. So anything that thinks about going wide, it makes your equipment more capable of doing that over the long term. I think it's a pretty decent card. I'm giving it a 3-star. I think I could see people running this as a sideboard card in Classic Constructed. So for me, that makes it a 3-star. Usable, possible to see as a sideboard. Probably not in every main deck ever, because sometimes you just don't face up against things that have 2 or less attack. Thunderquake. This card is so metal. This card, every time I see it, I just want to think about like Death Clock and go Thunder Horse, because this just strikes me as that kind of a card. I think this card's incredible. Thunderquake is probably going to be played or could be played in every version of Guardian ever. It's got the Heave keyword, which allows it to basically reduce its cost over the turn structure. You pay it up front and it kind of comes back to you. It's great again in Valda. It's a 6 for 10. And if you're playing it in Valda, it's a 6 for 10 with Dominate if you use the Heave effect. But even if you don't play this in Valda, it still blocks for 3. The blue is still a 6 for 8, which is a little under because it doesn't have a secondary effect, but you can pay for it more easily by floating that Heave effect over. So in a way, it's kind of like if you were to play the Ice Guardian attack, the one that people were playing a lot when they were playing like Limited, Glacial Footsteps. It's a lot like Glacial Footsteps when you just couldn't fuse it. It's just pure big damage, and I think that pays off in the long run. I could see this being played across the board. I'm giving this a 4-star because I actually think this just fits, period, in Guardian. I think it's a 4-star card. Let me know what you think about that. If I'm wrong, I want to hear it. Macho Grande has Dominate built in, and it's got the same stat line, and it costs 1 more than Thunderquake. Again, all of these are very aggressive in general. These are all cards that you just slam down, and if you can pay for them, your opponent has a hard time dealing with it. Weirdly enough, because it's 7 cost, I don't like this as much. I know that's strange. It's just like, it's so easy to look at Thunderquake at 6 and go, that's 2 blues. Where if you look at Macho Grande at 7, it's 2 blues, but you also have to pay for like a Seismic Surge token creation. And so that makes it a little bit trickier. So for me, this is a 3-star card versus the 4-star card. It's weird how that one stat change changes my view on it. Am I wrong in that assumption? I still think this is fantastic, and the fact that it has Dominate, maybe I should value the Dominate more, but I do think that the paying of the cost does matter a ton. So I'm going to stick with 3 cost, or a 3-star, I should say. I'm going to stick with a 3-star, but I do think this card still can also be played. And if you're playing aggro, you probably put this in there because it's just a nice, easy Dominate finisher, a game finisher. Now we get to talk about Seismic Stir. Seismic Stir costs 2, and if you're playing the red, this is again a comment, so it's a cycle. If you're playing the red, it creates 3 Seismic Surge tokens. I will play the reds in Guardian if it's specifically Valda, or if you're maybe thinking you want to play aggro Guardian and you'd like do the cycle where you take a turn off to set up, and then you play a big thing and then take a turn off to set up and play a big thing. Maybe if that's how things pan out, it's more of a mid-range strategy perhaps, but I could see Seismic Stir making the cut. Nevertheless, if it's not specifically Valda, I think this is a 2-star card, namely just because there's probably better stuff to put into your deck than something that creates 3 Seismic Surges. But this, for Valda, is like a 3 or better because it creates 3 Seismic Surge tokens and it turns on her secondary effect to give all your crush stuff dominate. And that's very, very good. So I like this card for her. Everybody else, I think, is more of a 2-star card. I think this is the last one. Steadfast, cost 3, it's an instant, and it says prevent the next 6 damage that you would be dealt to your hero this turn by a source of your choice. It's an interesting thought, and I'm not quite sure I would play it. The blue prevents 4. I don't think you necessarily need a card like this against a Kano, where you can respond to things with like at instant speed. I don't necessarily think you need it, but this is, in a way, you can also think of this like as a defense reaction, and Oldhim has shown that instants and defense reactions in a fatigue strategy work. They make sense, and this is what this is designed for. The question becomes, are you going to need to block 6, 5, or 4 in addition to what you can already do with the class? And for me, I'm not seeing it yet, but I could be short-sighted. I'm giving this a 2-star, but I do think that there is a capacity that I could just be missing a specific matchup that needs something like this or could benefit from something like this. And I'm not seeing it yet, but that doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. If there is a matchup down the line where Guardian just needs the extra defensive capability, perhaps this comes into play. But as of right now, I've seen Oldhim do very well defending a lot of different things from go wide to go tall. So this doesn't necessarily feel like it has a place as of right now. That right there is Guardian. Is it a winner? Is it a loser? For me, Guardian feels at first glance like a winner for this class. It got some interesting stuff, but the more I think about it, the more I'm thinking that they're trying to get people to play a different version of Guardian than actually exists. With these cards, they're enabling an aggro archetype that isn't necessarily as popular right now. So I'm curious to see if anyone will take that and run with it. Let me know in a comment below what you think about this. If you enjoyed this video, do the Guardian thing and crippling crush the sub goal. Look, we just got to go from one to the other, and the pure Guardian just goes in, pulverizes it. So if you want to do that, I would be very appreciative. If you enjoyed the video, do those things that people tell you to do, like and subscribe. As always, thanks for watching.